In India, it's more, as you put it, in this case, India was protesting against the OXML decision, along with Brazil, I think, and some other South American nation and South Africa as well. And then you have Russia, and in Russia, now they have the national operating system they say that they work on, which is based on Linux. And they've had all kinds of stories around that, around the schools, the national operating system, and Microsoft has this issue there with counterfeiting, which isn't exactly an issue; it's more of a feature for Microsoft in a country where people aren't so used to buying an operating system. They want it to be easily available, even on the black market, as long as people, well, probably you should say gray market, as soon as black market means also you get all kinds of viruses and things. But they want to ensure these countries, which are to them quite problematic, even though these are the biggest nations in terms of population or size, they want to ensure these countries bring the big masses, big number of users to Microsoft. But Microsoft doesn't care about these nations because they barely bring any revenue to the company.
One of the things on that I listened to an interview from, it was on Twit, of someone, I think he was working in Tibet, and what he had said was they've switched a lot of installs to Linux, and the reason that Linux was so appealing there is because the large companies have no incentive to create localized language. So if you're using an operating system in Tibet previously, the people who speak Tibet, I think it's Tibetan, maybe Cantonese. I'm not sure. I'm showing my ignorance here. It's their local language, their own culture, and they have to use an operating system. They have to learn an operating system where everything's in English. And why is that? Is because Microsoft and other companies, Adobe and all the companies that make the mainstream software that people are expected to use, they don't care about any other languages other than the ones that they can actually monetize. And with free software, you can have local people create language packs for their installs, so they can actually use these machines in their own language, which is an incredible thing for, especially when you're going back to like teaching kids. The last thing they want to be having to work round is having to learn something in a foreign language. That was where it works there. So unless Microsoft can make money out of that market, and if you're talking about a poor country, which a lot of the world is, so a lot of the world is developing nations that can't afford to buy these operating systems, and if they use Windows, it's illegal copies of Windows. Microsoft has no incentive whatsoever to go in and create local language packs for these various cultures. They just don't have the incentive to, because they get nothing back from it.
They say free software is especially of value whether you use it or not, because it forces Microsoft. In fact, you have proven cases where Microsoft only translated some software after the certain population or a tribe was trying to preserve tradition by adopting free software and starting to develop language packs. And some of these examples are like Zulu, and you have some examples in South America. I can think of examples in Asia, and I've written about them since around 2005. And it's really frustrating because it's especially when people actually start to work on these distributions, or in some cases it's even things like Firefox. But I think that's a place where Microsoft never really managed to stop the adoption of the competition. Whenever people start to put lots of effort behind translation of these things, Microsoft just comes all of a sudden and announces, oh, we love this country so much that we're going to provide a translation. And it's possible within a certain period of time you will not hear so much about the previous project that the local people were working on, because Microsoft was forced by the shareholders' interest to ensure it has a very, very high market share. And then they claim it to be a victory over the competition. That's just another type of FUD where you specifically target a migrating market, a market that's moving away from you. And you put lots of effort and lots of investment into translation and PR and so on. And then you put that and you use that as a sort of a case study of, look, Linux fails or open source fails, or especially we're talking about free software doesn't manage to be picked up by the population, and they say stories about, well, obviously they were looking at the possibilities and they found out Microsoft was the better solution, and that's just not the story. The real story is Microsoft putting lots of money into ensuring they can derail the competition, and then putting also, again, lots of money into making sure that it becomes kind of a myth, or it becomes kind of a stigmatized type of thing.
Well, a lot of Microsoft's issues, what they're trying to fight against, and it's like trying to trap a cloud. You just can't do it. As actual people's mindsets is, in the example with Tibet, with the languages are a very, very valid reason for people to do that. And when they get the idea that yes, we can put our own culture, we can make things and modify this computer to do what we need it to do, what works better for us. That then plants the seed of what else can we do? What else can we do that preserves our legacy and our place, our footprint in the world, basically. So yeah, I mean, it plants that seed of, we can do things on our own, we can influence this, we can modify this, where we're not reliant. Previously, we believed we were reliant on finding a company that was going to charge us money and give us a shrink-wrapped solution. So it plants that seed. And after they get that seed, Microsoft, they can't fight that. They absolutely cannot fight that. I mean, what are they going to do if when they come back in there and say, look, we've got our language pack for your local language? And you say, well, that's fine, great, but we want now to modify it in such and such a way. And Microsoft say, no, you can't do that. We've got the source code, you ain't getting it. And you ain't modifying that. If you want it, we'll modify it for you, but we'll charge you whatever we feel is valid. So it plants that seed that Microsoft cannot, of independence, that Microsoft do not want them to even know exists.
Well, Roy, have you got any other points you want to add?
It's the whole point of a cultural autonomy and all kinds of nations' choices to do something with security have increasingly this need for backdoors, especially in certain nations that want to spy on their citizens. You have all kinds of desires to impose a firewall on people, trying to put it in the PC side, as opposed to things like routers and servers and firewalls. And if you want to be able to be in control, you cannot rely on shareholders in another country. They have their own interests, and lots of stories, including some where Microsoft shut down the messenger service for, I think, 4 countries, like Cuba and Syria. Two more, and I cannot remember which ones. And this was a decision that could not be overridden by those nations because they were dependent on Microsoft to allow them to access these services. And only, I think only in recent years you see lots of this control with proprietary software. Also, they have mechanisms to delete things remotely, to disable things remotely, to use DRM in all sorts of ways. So even if you're disconnected, they can do things to you unless you change the clock on your system. The system can disable files or refuse to run certain files, to open certain files. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about that.
Well, Gordon, if you've got nothing else I want to add for this particular